Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for September 2nd, 2020. Yesterday, we received a bit of good news from the governor as he announced with cautious optimism that all businesses in the state of Maryland will be reopening effective 5 p.m. on Friday. The economy of the state is moving forward in the right direction, and as we heard at our recent PC 53 conference on the state of operations of our public service companies during the COVID pandemic, that they are ready to respond, they have the capacity, they are reliable, and as the economy begins to grow, we could count on our utilities to power the economy forward. So we'll look forward to more details regarding stage 3 of the reopening for our state, which is the final stage, as that begins this coming Friday. We have some minutes to approve from our last meeting that we held on August 26th of 2020. We'll take a vote of those minutes, beginning with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 3 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission's application for a license to supply natural gas and natural gas services in the state of Maryland. And items number 2 and 3 consist of the annual weather station designations of Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc. for item number 2 and Potomac Electric Power Company and Delmarva Power and Light Company for item number 3.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions on any of these consent items? Commissioner Linton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions for the applicant for item number 1. If we...
Thank you. And if we have staff available.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Nanzang on behalf of Commission staff.
Good morning. So do we know if anyone from the applicant is on with us today?
I'm present, Your Honor. David Bugelman's on behalf of WSSC.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Bugelman.
Morning.
I had a few questions regarding the application of WSSC. Just so that I'm clear about the business structure of who's actually applying for this license. Am I correct, based on the application? I think it's the answer to number 14. You've stated here that the applicant is the state agency created by statute. So it's not a subsidiary or affiliate or a partner type of company to WSSC?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay. And the WSSC is using this license to primarily provide gas service to itself and not to other businesses or other commercial entities?
That's correct, Your Honor. The intent at first is self-supply, and then potentially in the future they would use the license to supply some select government customers within its service territory with gas from a biogas generation facility. So it's a very narrow purpose.
Okay, so then the intent, so I'm not entirely sure that you would need to have a license to supply gas to yourself, but I guess the overall goal long-term appears to be to provide, to some limited level, gas to other corporations that are not WSSC.
That's correct, Your Honor. Potentially in the future, there could be supply outside of the agency, and that's the intent here, is to make sure that license is in place, so that can happen, potentially.
Okay. So this is a unique application, Mr. Bugelman. As you probably well know, there's not a lot of state agencies that have licenses with the commission, especially in our deregulated market. I believe, in fact, and staff could correct me if I'm wrong here, but we've issued well over 1,000 licenses, and I think this would be the first, and I guess the only. Is that Mr. Spivak, would that be accurate?
I do believe that is accurate. Ms. Young might add something to that. I do know that it's not the first application for an organization for a license to self-supply. Beth Steele did that previously. Amtrak may have as well, but I'm not sure on that.
Right. Yeah, I believe you're correct on both of those. Mr. Bugelmans, I'm assuming just by the application itself, WSSC believes that a state agency would be considered a person under the statute.
I think that's correct, Your Honor. I understand the concern, but from our perspective, we wanted to be very careful with ensuring that a license was in place if there was going to be supply outside of the organization. Potentially it's an open legal question for the commission, but again, the intent here is to be conservative and make sure we have the appropriate licenses if the commission determines one is required.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I've worked with representatives and people at WSSC for many years, and so I have great respect for them. And so I respect and appreciate the fact that they're trying to do it correctly to the extent we proceed. Is it fair to say then that the WSSC would understand then that if there's, for some reason, that a party that they're selling their service to that's not themselves has a dispute with them regarding that supply or that contract, that could potentially come before the commission?
That's absolutely understood, Your Honor. With the license comes all the obligations under the license and the commission's dispute procedures as well. So that's our understanding. With respect to the license, there would be the commission's jurisdiction over disputes.
Okay, so the reason why I ask is that as a state agency, currently that's not the case for a customer that receives service from WSSC. It was any dispute whatsoever is resolved by WSSC itself. So this would be a different situation for them than what they're used to.
Correct. Understood. But again, we're applying for the license. To the extent the commission determines a license is required for a government agency such as WSSC, we would expect the commission's jurisdiction to control over that license.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I have different types of questions on this issue. And I wanted to ask a couple questions this morning just to kind of understand what's the structure behind the request here. I won't say that I'm opposed to it. I will say that it's very unique in the sense that the WSSC, of course, is created in the same public utility article as the commission and one other state agency which tends to appear before us on a regular basis that starts with an O and ends with a C. So I mean, I don't know that it was contemplated at the time that a state agency would seek a license to participate in a competitive market, even in the limited manner in which WSSC is proposing today. So this was timely presented, and it was timely presented to us here today. But I'd like to request that we continue this for at least a week or two to think through it a bit more. I'm not quite sure where I would be on this one yet.
Thank you, Commissioner. This application is sort of a different breed of animal that we had here, and you've asked some good questions, and I think you've given me more to think about. Let me just make sure see if the other commissioners have any questions. Mr. Bugelmans, I'm looking at the calendar. We have Labor Day next week. If we continue this for 2 weeks, is September the 16th good for your schedule?
It's good for my schedule, Your Honor.
And let me ask staff, council, is the 16th, are you amenable to come back?
We will be here, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Spivak. Just wanted to make sure you're not riding a train somewhere. The commission oh, Commissioner O'Donnell, I see your mic.
No, I just wanted to say I'm supportive of Commissioner Linton's request. I think it's appropriate. If the commissioner wants to look at something, and we don't have a timeliness requirement, we should offer that courtesy to another commissioner. I'm okay.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, if we could continue item number 1 to the administrative meeting of September 16, 2020.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you to the parties. We'll move to the next item, please. Let me ask the commissioners if they have questions with respect to items number 2 or 3 on the consent agenda. Hearing none, I will move that we approve the weather station designations for the purpose of determining when there is an extreme weather period that imposes a restriction on termination of service due to a customer's non-payment, as described under COMAR, Title 20, Subtitle 31, Chapter 3, Regulations number 3 and 4. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner
Aye.
I vote aye. Motions for items 2 and 3 are approved.
Mr. Chairman, on today's administrative agenda, items number 4 through 6 are the semi-annual electric vehicle progress reports of respectively BGE, Pepco, and DP&L, Potomac Edison, and Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc. On each of these items for staff, we have Drew McAuliffe and Annette Garofalo, Karine Dumit for EVgo LLC, and Fred Hoover for OPC. On item number 4, we have Robert Stewart, Jennifer Grisham, Doug McKeel, Daniel Horson, Christy Fleischman-Gronke, and Paul Verchinsky. On item number 5, Teresa Harold, Raymond Valdez, and Neil Keating. And finally, on number 6, Mark McDougall and Lizelle Rory.
Thank you, and my thanks to staff for putting together the very comprehensive buck sheets of all of these utilities. This is an exciting time. I would describe myself as an EV advocate, so I was anxious to see the level of progress that we've made over the past 6 months, recognizing that the pandemic has both intervened and interfered with the rollout of the various rebates, the installation of the public chargers, and as well as consumer interest. We know that folks weren't walking through dealerships in April and May, so vehicle sales were down. Hence, there was a lag in people and customers looking for EV charging equipment to be installed in their home. With that, I know that staff, I don't believe, has anything additional to add here, but correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Mr. McAuliffe, hi, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I was just going to say we don't have anything to add at this time other than what we filed in our comments.
Thank you. Let me turn to Office of People's Counsel. We recognize that you filed one pleading with respect to all of the submissions.
Mr. Chairman, it's Fred Hoover on behalf of the Office of People's Counsel. Yes, we did file a letter in commenting on one of the programs under the joint Exxon Utilities, and that is the BG&E program. And then specifically what we referred to was the recommendation was that it was contained in staff's buck sheet on page 7 about BG&E's proposal to spend money on DCFC chargers and cover that money by reducing the amount of money in the budget allocated to multifamily dwellings. It seems to us that during the current restrictions because of the COVID situation, even though we seem to be sort of opening up a little bit, there's still a lot of restrictions on people going to their offices. And so the one place that people were looking to charge was workplace charging, but that is probably going to get slowed until the business activity comes back up. So that means that most of the charging is going to be done at home. And one of the real barriers to home charging has been multifamily dwellings. It's been very difficult from the get-go for those customers who have an electric vehicle because of the circumstances of not owning the the electric infrastructure at their facility to have available charging options. So we would like to see the money that's in that budget still remain in promoting that type of charging option, as opposed to shifting it to chargers that are more used for the public network, particularly given the fact that, you know, we're still in a situation where travel is not as brisk as it was before. So the public charging network, you know, may not necessarily need this additional boost right now, but it's our view that the multifamily thing is still an important constituency for electric vehicles, and so therefore the effort should be maintained in promoting charging stations there.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. And OPC is not offering any particular comments with respect to the Potomac Edison or Southern Maryland proposals?
No, we read those and they seem fine. We're perfectly happy with the efforts being made by those two companies.
Thank you. I'll next turn to Mr. Paul Verchinsky.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm fully in agreement with the Office of People's Counsel. As you note in my filing that I did, I've been trying to concentrate on MUDs and their issues. I serve on a board in Columbia that has 3,400 residential units. I'm fully aware of the issues that boards are facing. I basically recommend that, particularly for the MUD tranche, that all the utilities go forward with good marketing outreach to the larger property management companies within the state of Maryland. They need to be educated, and until that happens, I don't foresee a large number of MUDs installing EVSEs. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to my filing.
Thank you, Mr. Verchinsky. We'll turn to the commissioners in a moment, and they may have questions for you. Let me now turn to the joint utilities for Exelon for your comments.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Daniel Herson for Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, and I'm joined by Christy Fleischman-Gronke. She's BG's Manager of Strategic Programs and Administrator of BG's EV Smart program. We do not have a formal presentation to make this morning, but Ms. Fleischman-Gronke has a few remarks and then we'll be available for questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Christy Fleischman-Gronke. I just wanted to respond to the comments on the 150 kW units and reducing the multifamily budget. We actually feel that these 150 kW units are a good addition to the multifamily program, in a sense that we are seeing a lot of property owners and developers that are not ready to make the switch and install EV charging, but they're very interested in if we could site public charging stations around some of their properties. And 150 kW chargers are a great solution for multifamily tenants, as they could charge quickly and then return home. So this is one way that the property owners and developers don't have to invest in charging stations, but still have nearby charging for their tenants. We're also simply just asking to reduce the program slightly. As noted in staff's comments, we were awarded DOE funding, which actually covers 20 of the 50 units we were proposing. So the incremental cost is now just 1.9 million as opposed to 3 million, which limits the impacts to the multifamily program. And we additionally believe there are several benefits to the 150 kW units, which staff noted as well, that it aligns with customer expectations. The charging companies are beginning to install faster charging stations, 150 kW as a minimum, up to 350 kW. Provides a better customer experience. It allows for fleet electrification. So we've had many conversations with some of the counties, such as Anne Arundel County, that recently announced they're electrifying their fleet and would love to use these 150 kW chargers to recharge their fleets and get them back on the road. And also supports, as the DOE project I mentioned, supports rideshare companies electrifying. So we will be using DOE funding to work with a rideshare provider to implement 100 EVs in the Baltimore area.
Thank you, Ms. Grundy. Obviously, item number 4 is a joint filing between BG&E and PHI. Does the representative from PHI have additional commentary?
Good morning, Chairman Stanek and Commissioners. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Michael, your connection is not the best. Mr. Michael, if you could hear me, I'll just need you to stop for a moment. We're having trouble with both your audio and your video. Perhaps if you turn your video off, the audio quality might be better.
Gladly. Is that better?
That sounds much better so far, yes.
Okay. As I said, I have Ms. Jennifer Grisham here, a principal manager of our Smart Grid and Business Program, and Rob Stewart, the manager of Smart Grid and Innovation. We don't have any outbound presentation. We have asked for 2 changes in our program, and as I read staff's buck sheet, they are supportive of both of those changes. So we're here to answer any questions the commission may have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Michael. So we'll address item number 4 first, and then we'll discuss the other utilities proposals. I recognize that we're at the beginning of the 5-year pilot stage. I expected that there would be some ramp up. Obviously, none of us expected a once in a lifetime pandemic to interfere with that rollout. So I wasn't terribly surprised by some of the statistics that I saw. I was heartened by BGE's public charging program. It looks like 205 of the allotted 500 public chargers are either in operation, in construction, or pending approval. So that was good to see. However, I was more concerned with the PHI companies, both Pepco and Delmarva. Only 6 public chargers and all L2 chargers, no fast chargers, are operating in the Pepco service territory, and a total of 0 public chargers are available in DPL's service territory on the Eastern Shore. And as we know, once we go east and west of the Baltimore, DC metropolitan areas, it gets rural pretty quickly. And before I joined the commission, I didn't quite grasp how rural some parts of our state are. But when you look at the Eastern Shore, and we have almost 4,000 square miles, I took a look at the total number of public chargers that we have for fast charging purposes for folks that are getting from one side of the bridge to the other. And as of today, there's only 8 fast chargers in all of the Eastern Shore. Of those 8, I looked at this morning, and only 4 of them are in reliable operation. The other 4 have questionable reliability, which I think most long distance travelers would be hesitant to use. Obviously, none of those are chargers that are utility owned at this point. But Mr. Michael, perhaps you could give me a better understanding of either the delays or reluctance or what these permitting approval processes entail that we're more than a year out and we don't have any chargers in the ground in your service territory on the Eastern Shore.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I will turn that question over to Ms. Grisham, who runs the programs.
Good morning, this is Jennifer Grisham. Thank you, Chairman, for this opportunity to speak. And I will say that over the last 2 months, we have made some pretty significant progress for both of our programs. We do understand that it has been a slow ramp up. We have made some adjustments, proactively identifying and targeting locations and then working with our government stakeholders to present them and then get that approval to move forward. We are under construction for 2 locations in our Jamal Service Territory right now. We did finish the installation for 2 level 2 charging stations in Salisbury, and looking to energize them in the next couple of weeks. And then we're also under construction for 2 level 2 chargers in the town of Betterton as well. And then we have a number of different charging stations also in the queue that have made some great progress the last couple of months with our counties in that service territory in Delmarva. And then similarly in Pepco, we did just receive approval last week to start construction on our first property with Prince George's County. And the county's also identified 2 other locations that they're looking at that we can install charging stations, and we're positive and have a positive outlook about the number of stations that we can install in Prince George's County in the next 3 or 4 months. And also, we did get, have been working with Montgomery County's Department of Transportation, and we have 12 locations, primarily in the Bethesda and Silver Spring area, that we believe that we can install a good number of chargers there. Since we did file a report, we do have 1 DC fast charger in Rockville, which is operational, and it's getting fairly good usage right now. We've also finished 3 level 2 charging stations in Mount Rainier over the last month and are under construction for 5 others in our Pepco service territory. So the pandemic certainly did not help with the speed and the rate that we wanted to move forward with the program, but we do have a number of different sites in progress, either in engineering design or just waiting for that final sign off. And I believe by our next semi-annual report, we'll see much more significant progress from us.
Thank you, Ms. Grisham. Just looking at some of your appendices, I was disappointed to see that our 4 largest jurisdictions, Montgomery, Prince George's, Baltimore City, and Baltimore County, were some of the slower to adopt, where some of the other jurisdictions, Anne Arundel and Howard and Carroll, seem to be more receptive to hosting chargers. I hope that in your communications with the county and local officials, you emphasize that this is not only a utility program, but it's a state-approved program that is consistent with the goals of the state to get 300,000 electric vehicles on the road by 2025. I do want to just opine for a moment on the requests. I am more sympathetic with both staff, Office of People's Counsel, and Mr. Verchinsky with respect to BGE's request to move the $3 million from the multi-unit family dwellings to the public charging stations. I think we're still at a very early stage. We were thrown a curveball with the situation that we're now dealing with. So I believe it would be premature to move forward and make that budget reallocation at this time. Obviously, the commission could reconsider that at a later date, but my colleagues will have thoughts on that as well. With respect to PHI's 2 additional requests, I found them to be reasonable, and I recognize that no party disagrees with those requests. I'll open it up to my colleagues at this point for any questions they have, and I can't see all of my colleagues on the screen, so please feel free to jump in. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, on your position on the BG&E and the PHI requests, I concur with your sentiment there, so it's kind of where I'm coming from on that. With regard to the rural nature of the state, east and west of the Washington, Baltimore, Central Maryland corridor, it's also true south of that corridor. And so I wanted to ask either Mr. Herson or Ms. Fleischman-Gronke about the beaches, the Twin Beaches area in northern Calvert County. My understanding was we had some delay with the proposal. I forget which town it was specifically, but if you could give me an update on that. And I know it's a parochial question, but it's for the rural areas of the state. I'm going to be consistent in making sure the rural areas are paid attention to as we electrify transportation.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So we were looking to site chargers in Chesapeake Beach. There was a delay at the last hearing where the property that we were citing the chargers was actually owned by Calvert County and not the town of Chesapeake Beach. That land transition, as far as we've been told, occurred late spring. We received a request from the town of Chesapeake Beach for the construction drawings, again, to sign off on so we could move into the construction phase. We provided those drawings in response to that request in late May and have not received a response from the town of Chesapeake Beach since then.
Okay, so it's the town planning, it's not the county planning. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Calvert County is not the easiest place to get construction permitting at the county level. I'm not as familiar with the town level, but all right, thank you for that update. That's important to know. So you're still on hold by the county, the town
Right.
municipal planning process. Okay, thank you.
Yes, we're ready to go. We could break ground tomorrow if they signed off on the construction drawings.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Commissioner Richard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. One, we were talking about the multifamily, multi-unit program. It looks like there is some challenges there to try to get more projects. One of the reasons for, at least as I recall, one of the reasons I believe we were also trying to address how we might be able to help a low-income community. Can you give me an idea how we're doing in that respect? Maybe characterize some of the types of projects we have right now with the MUDs, and are we achieving that end? Yeah.
Sure. So we have only received 6 applications to date from multifamily properties. None of them so far have been in low-income areas. We do have about 80 different properties that are in progress of purchasing or installing chargers. We were having some pretty good conversations with property owners and developers in the beginning of the year, and a lot of those conversations were put on hold due to COVID. They, had different outbreaks at their buildings and didn't want to move forward with any installations at the time, but we are now seeing a lot of those property managers come back and initiate the conversations to move forward. Several locations are in the Baltimore City area, and we're also, through the DOE grant that we recently received, we'll be doing a rideshare program, and that will be targeted directly at low-income customers. We will be providing workforce development, community outreach, and education through those programs with a rideshare provider.
Great, thank you. And I wanted to add, of course, I recognize that during the pandemic, we're probably not getting the types of results we would have otherwise expected at this stage in the pilot. And I'm glad to hear that there is some progress with the rideshare program. I thought that was a very innovative idea. But I did want to ask, this is probably will be a question to have for the other filings. Do you have low-income advocates, low-income advisors as working with you to try to make sure that we are tailoring these programs to achieve that end of in serving all communities? Is there an effort to try to locate some of these projects? I mean, actively taking effort to try to find locations where we might try to achieve that objective.
Yes, definitely. We have low-income advocates within BGE that specialize in, identifying these type of properties, also working with our large customer services. We have done a lot of outreach to property owners and developers that we have through those relationships, as well as previous companies that participated in our energy efficiency programs. We're reaching out to all of those customers. We've joined several multi-family housing groups. We were planned to attend to many events this spring that have been postponed. We were planning to attend a builder mart and different housing authority events to promote our programs and to get our information out there. We're still looking at how to do that virtually, but we did have plans to do in-person events this past spring. And then as far as the public program, we're also using our public charging stations to help address low-income areas. So again, with the rideshare program, we've heard from different companies that a lot of those rideshare and ride-hailing services are start and end in low-income areas. So we want to put our public charging stations in areas that would, support that back and forth travel for the quick recharge for the rideshare purposes.
Great, good. And, I'm glad to hear about the ride share and the maybe even car sharing, just other types of programs, even public transportation, perhaps. Should we not be able to use some of these MUD dollars, the multi-unit dwelling dollars, perhaps we ought to be looking at transferring them to some other types of innovative low-income programs. I wanted to ask.
All right.
Sorry.
I was going to say, just take this opportunity again to say it's, we're actually now just saying the reduction would be 1.9 million for multifamily or a budget increase of 1.9 million. The DOE funding will cover 1.1 million of the total 3. So we're no longer requesting a $3 million change. It would just be 1.9 million.
Right, understood. And on the residential program, the smart charging program, it seems like if I'm reading the buck sheets correctly, there's some challenges there in trying to get customers interested in installing, I guess, purchasing and installing the smart chargers. Mm-hmm. Any comments on that? Are we marketing it correctly? Are they not getting information at the dealer? And then I guess on the other side, I was actually very concerned that we're not using the features, the load shaping features, which for me anyway, that was why these were in the public interest, to make sure that we don't have any impacts, adverse impacts on our distribution system, and the fact that we can hopefully use the cleanest energy resources. So what is being contemplated now? What is, as far as trying to get people to use these features, and should we consider making it perhaps more mandatory? Mm-hmm. After all, a lot of the people right now, the complaint is, are upper income that may be benefiting from this program, and I would argue that it's the public interest in making sure that we're using all the features that make it, which is the reason for subsidizing in the first place. So if you have a comment on that, how are we going to try to make sure that we're using these smart charging features in the public interest?
So the first half of your question about residential EV applications, we have seen a dramatic increase in applications since the addition of the Tesla compatible chargers. So I was receiving multiple customer emails on a weekly basis, noting that Tesla was one of the highest or is the highest selling EV in our service territory. And that people are also often buying the Tesla wall connector when they're purchasing the Tesla, which then made them ineligible for our program at the time, with only having the handful of smart chargers. So adding the Tesla eligibility has dramatically increased our applications. And right now we're up to 382 applications, which is a big increase from what we reported in our semi-annual report. So we believe that will continue. We have changed marketing, and we're doing direct marketing to customers that self-identify that they have an EV. We've developed propensity models of lookalike customers and are reaching out to them. We have seen very promising click-through rates. So the industry average is around 15%, where we're receiving up to 40% click-through and revisit. So some of our emails have been opened, I think it's 400%. So customers were coming back to the email, which was really positive. We do believe there was a slowdown in car purchases and subsequent charger purchases due to COVID-19, but hoping that will be picking up in this fall as we start to see the car dealerships do Labor Day promotions, Black Friday promotions. We will be doing our advertising to coordinate with those dealership promotions. And we're doing a aggressive work with our dealerships now that they're opening up to get our brochures and information in the hands of customers that are looking to purchase EVs.
Okay, and just using the features though, that I think was probably my real concern. How do we get customers to do that? And I mean, would you agree that if we're not using the features, then perhaps it's not truly in the public interest that we be subsidizing these smart chargers? Are there other features that you believe make it worthwhile and reasonable that we would socialize these costs?
So actually, BGE has seen a shift. So our last semi-annual report, the average customer was starting to charge around 5 o'clock. But now that BGE is offering the EV only time of use rate, our average time that customers are starting to charge is after 9 o'clock during those off-peak times. So the time of use rate is making a big difference. Also, the second grant application deploying some demonstration projects for managed charging. So we'll be deploying gamification as well as direct load control and other programs to encourage customers to charge off peak. I will note though that it has been a very interesting time where typically drivers would charge nightly. When they got home from work, they would plug in the car, schedule that charge to occur overnight. But given that people aren't really commuting to work today, not driving much, we are seeing customers only charging on like a once a week or every other week basis. So charging behaviors have been different, but hopefully it will get back in charging structure, and we can offer these programs to really promote off-peak charging. But just with the time of use rate, we've seen a big difference.
Great. No, I appreciate that answer. That is something I personally would like to watch carefully and make sure that we're getting the full value out of these smart chargers. Otherwise, it seems people should just be plugging into the wall, either the 110 or they, it should be on them to go ahead and install the 220 because otherwise this seems to be just an unnecessary piece of equipment hanging on people's garage walls. So, well, thanks. And I am interested in just the utilization rates and profitability of the customer or the utility owned. But given that we just, I think this is probably a period of time that we're probably not getting a real snapshot in time. So I'll save that for the next round of reports. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Fleischman-Dunke, I think this question is probably going to go to you. Can you explain to me why we need to agree to move the now 1.9 million out of multifamily today? Because you've got this DOE funding for 20 fast chargers. So isn't it going to take some time to get those in anyway? And isn't it something that we could take up later without at this time deciding that we have to move money away from multifamily?
Yes, absolutely. So we have 20 units, as you mentioned, funded. We will be looking to deploy most of those with the DOE program. So we have 10 of them planned for BWI, which is a great location to recharge rideshare, as well as a great location for customers to recharge quickly, as there often isn't charging infrastructure in those long-term parking lots. And then looking to cite the other 10 or so in the Baltimore area to support the rideshare. We could definitely take this up at a future hearing, or as opposed to taking money away from the multifamily program, we could request just a program increase of the 1.9 if that's a more agreeable solution.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, you have the 1.9 million from DOE. I'm not sure that we need to, perhaps I'm incorrect. I'm not sure that we need to approve that. You've got that. And so, and that's great. I think, good on you all for getting those DOE grants. I think that's great. And so from my standpoint, I think, like Commissioner O'Donnell and Chairman Stanek, I think that right now we don't need to make that decision because you got enough on you got a lot on your plate, and so you got 20 to go. So let's get those 20 in that come from the DOE grant before we start moving money around in the program. I think that was really my only question. Oh, the other question was, you had another request. Was it BGE or Pepco? It might have been Pepco. That I know Pepco was the extra funds. I'm sorry, it's Pepco. Pepco is the extra funds to include Tesla chargers. I think that I support that. Is there any way staff has asked that the PHI companies limit their costs elsewhere to try to avoid budget increases? So I don't know, Ms. Grisham, if you want to respond to staff's recommendation that you seek to limit your costs elsewhere.
Commissioner Herman, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes, we did notice staff's comments and do believe that there are opportunities within our current budget, particularly the utility admin budget. We're doing some of those that work with in-house resources. We believe that there are going to be cost savings there that can be used to support the WeaveGrid platform. And I also wanted to, does that answer your question?
It does. I mean, does it fully offset, or you just figure it's going to reduce the 400,000 somewhat?
Significantly reduced.
Okay.
And if necessary, we can, in our next semi-annual report, identify fully those cost savings.
Okay, thanks.
And then, did you have any other questions?
No, I don't think so. I mean, for my part, I think I do support the Pepco request. I think Tesla, if people are buying Teslas, we need to support, those programs as well. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I also wanted to address Commissioner Richards' question from earlier and say that we are seeing a bit of an uptick in our residential applications. Still not where we'd like them to be, but much more than they were back in March and April of this year. And we do believe that this WeaveGrid platform will support us in an upcoming off-peak, off-bill filing that we'd like to submit that would help support encouraging customers to charge off-peak. We recognize, and I think staff noted in their report, that our customers are still charging at 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's a significant issue. And we started our communications outreach to those customers, but we believe that this filing will really help move that along.
Sorry, thank you very much for answering that. I was under the mistaken impression that Ms. Fleischman was answering for everybody, so I really appreciate that answer. And for the record, I also support staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from commissioners? Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have one question. It's about the PHI request to reallocate $400,000 or increase. I'm sorry, but it actually is directed to Ms. Fleischman-Gronke because you've had some experience in seeing an increase in Tesla chargers, a request from Tesla customers already. So I was curious if those were customers who were recent purchasers of Tesla vehicles and the chargers that go with it, or were they customers who had Teslas for a long time, and once the opportunity for the rebate appeared, they wanted to take advantage of it?
Yeah, we don't have specifics on when the driver purchased the car. We do have the eligibility of it had to be purchased, the charge had to be purchased and installed after July 1st of 2019. So they definitely had to purchase the car and the charger within the past year. We do believe that a lot of the sales are happening more recently. We are seeing customers connect their cars with the Model Y, which is a new model on the market, and just began delivery in late May, maybe even June. So there are still significant Tesla orders being fulfilled over the summer.
Okay, so you're still seeing a continued uptick in requests from Tesla customers?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, with respect to item number 4, I'm going to propose several motions because we have interrelated issues here. With respect to BGE's request, initially $3 million to be moved from the multifamily unit dwelling budget to the public charging budget, now revised downwards to 1.9 million. I move that we deny that request. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, with the understanding that without prejudice, aye.
That is the correct understanding. Yes, sir. Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. And as Commissioner O'Donnell just stated, that this decision is without prejudice. If you'd like to bring it back at the next opportunity, you may do so. Next up, with respect to PHI's request for an increase of $400,000 to the residential rebate budget, with the understanding that PEPCO will seek to offset those costs with savings, I move that we approve the request. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. That motion is approved. And finally, with respect to PHI's request to allow multifamily rebates to apply to customers who have independently purchased and installed qualifying equipment after July 1st of 2009, I move that we approve that request. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Finally, I move that we note the filing. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. That motion is approved. Thank you to the Exelon companies for that very comprehensive filing. At this point, we will move to item 5, which the Secretary has previously called. We note that staff nor OPC nor Mr. Verchinsky have additional comments. So I'll turn to representatives from Potomac Edison.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Teresa Harold, and I'm here on behalf of the Potomac Edison Company. Here with me is Ray Valdez, Director of Rates and Regulatory Affairs, and Neil Keating, Program Manager, Emerging Technologies. We do not have a presentation for you, but we're here to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Howard. I note that the rollout has begun. We saw the first chargers installed a few months back in Frostburg, was it?
Yes.
How far along the corridor will we be seeing additional charging equipment being installed? All the way down I-68?
Yes, I'll turn that over to Neil to give more, Mr. Keating, to give more specifics.
Thank you.
Hi, Neil Keating with Potomac Edison. Yeah, we plan to install Out 68 over near Grantsville, as outlined in the map that we provided in the filing, and just south of there also in McHenry.
Well, thank you for your continued efforts. Look forward to taking a drive all the way to the West Virginia border without having to worry that there's not enough juice in the battery. Other commissioners. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Just curious about the plans for development at Rocky Gap. What do you have there? What do you plan to have there? If anything, it seems like a natural place to encourage commerce and at a state facility.
We've had multiple conversations with some state agencies that have property out there, one of them being Department of Natural Resources. We've looked at some of their properties. No specific plans there yet, but we're continuing conversations. We are in and around Rocky Gap at various locations.
So for a state-owned resort that's struggled over the years, and the state has a huge investment there, and we want to draw from, maybe the Pittsburgh metropolitan area and other states into a state resort area, in an area that's fairly economically depressed. I would ask that you consider really strongly making that a priority, because it just seems like a natural fit to me. So anyway, it's my thought. Do with it what you wish, but it seems like a natural fit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just have a question for Mr. McAuliffe, if he's still on the line?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah, great. Just on your discussion of the PE filing, page 4, actually it's 3 and 4, but in the whole discussion about the utility-owned charging stations and utilization rates and profitability, I guess there's 2 questions to that. First, I noticed on the PE filing, you make the statement, charging stations have been largely unprofitable, but then you add, as have most charging stations across Maryland. So do we have data? Are you talking about private sector and the utility chargers, or I just wanted to understand that better and find out, do we have data on the, kind of a benchmark, what we should expect for charging stations and something to compare the utility program against?
The fusion, yeah, I was focusing more on the utility-owned stations. So when I meant statewide, I guess I was referring really to the Exelon utilities as well, as their charging stations have not been profitable largely to date. The reason I brought this up was just to kind of start tracking this as we move forward, just to see, I asked questions to all the utilities on that issue, just to see their thoughts on, what they thought they could do to make these more profitable and therefore, reduce the cost of this program overall, as those revenues would go back to ratepayers. So for your other question, no, we don't have data directly on how other charging companies, say an EVgo or a ChargePoint, what their profitability looks like. I know we do hear from them frequently that they struggle with meeting their bills sometimes if there's high demand charges, which the commission has heard before. But just in general, yeah, I just wanted to start looking at this issue as we move forward to see if there's anything the utilities noticed, whether it was low utilization or just the rates that they were charging were too low, or if they had just any general thoughts on how to make these profitable.
Okay, great, thank you. And perhaps if you can, I would find it interesting anyway to if you could reach out to EVgo and ChargePoint and the other companies, just so we have a sense of what the public charging stations, I would say the private sector charging stations, what their metrics are, what their success rates are, and that way we have, I think, have a sense of what how the utilities programs are going. And so anyway, just a suggestion, perhaps since those companies are very involved with our pilot, they might be willing to provide that type of data for us, during the pilot phase. Can I also just ask, just help me understand the chart you had in both filings about the usage rates. It says average usage rate is 1.23%, and then it says average charge duration hours, an hour 54 minutes. I mean, are you just going 1.23% times 24 hours, because that doesn't quite match up with the average charge duration? I just like to better understand this chart. Yes. that you're providing.
Fine. In the hours, it's just the hours being utilized. So if it was an hour and 50, maybe perhaps multiple folks, an hour and 54 minutes in that day, per day.
Okay, you kind of broke up, but that's fine. I can also ask this question offline just to get a better idea of how you're tracking this. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No more questions.
Thank you. Additional questions? Seeing none, I will move that we note the filing. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton. Aye. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. And last, we have representatives from the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, and we'll go right to the utility representative.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Mark McDougall. I'm here on behalf of Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative. Also here is Lizelle Rory. Ms. Rory is SMECO's Economic Services Director, and she's been heading up SMECO's EV charging station effort. We don't have any prepared comments right now, but we're here to answer any comments, questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Do commissioners have questions of SMECO? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. McDougall, just edification of those on the call, characterize the progress of the pilot in the SMECO service territory for us, if you would.
Well, we are pursuing multiple locations for our EV charging stations. We have partnered with a company who will be installing those for us. Right now, we have 4 sites that we have contracts for and will begin installation shortly. One is at the Leonardtown Library in St. Mary's County. We have 2 locations in Charles County, one at the White Plains Health Center and the Waldorf West Library, and one in Prince George's County at the Accokeek Library.
Good. And I suppose the plan is to be in all the counties in the service territory.
That is correct. We don't have anything in progress right now for Calvert County. There has been, as I'm sure you're aware, a lot of change in key staffing at Calvert County, but we are in contact with them and we're working out locations, primarily along the Route 4 corridor that would assist in the EV development in Southern Maryland.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're looking at destinations too, like little destinations like Calvert Marine Museum.
As a matter of fact, we are, Commissioner, one of the locations we're trying to secure is the visitor center right across the street from the Calvert Marine Museum down in Solomons.
That is my understanding is now that is a DNR service center. Now it's my understanding transition.
I trust you're correct. I don't know.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Seeing no additional questions from commissioners, I move that we note SMECO's filing. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion is approved. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 7 consists of Columbia Gas of Maryland, Inc.'s 2020 semi-annual STRIDE project status report. On this item for staff, we have Carlos Acosta, and for the company, Megan Moore, Rebecca Garrity, and Ken Fillion.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Acosta. Acosta, you're on mute.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Carlos Acosta on behalf of Commission staff. On July 28th of this year, Columbia submitted its calendar year 2020 STRIDE mid-year report on the status of the 2020 projects approved by the Commission on February 19, 2020. For recovery through Columbia's infrastructure replacement and improvement surcharge IRIS. This is the second year of Columbia's STRIDE 2 program. Staff has reviewed the filing and found the calculations to be accurate. Staff recommends that the Commission note the filing, and I am available to answer any questions you may have on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. I was very happy to see that the utility is on schedule and under budget for its major projects for completion later this year. I do not have any questions for your team. Questions from the commissioners?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Herman.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, and perhaps one of your colleagues will answer this. I'm just curious about, I too am glad to see that you're on target and that you believe you're going to make your targets and potentially be under budget. But I'm wondering if the circumstances we find ourselves in with respect to COVID, where there's less traffic and there's less movement about, whether or not that has contributed to your ability to be on time and also to be to potentially be under budget. You know, it's a question that I have, and I've asked others parties the same thing. So I'm curious to see what you found.
Thank you for the question. Ken, would you mind, Ken Fillion is in engineering and he's actually out in the field or has been, so I think this is best suited for him.
Currently, as of right now, our intent is to still have all of our work complete prior to end. Based on what had been submitted, it did show at the time that we are under budget. I do know that just recently we brought on a few more crews to make sure that we are able to complete all work. So that might change in the near future, but I would say currently we're on track.
So are you saying that you think you might get off track because you might have a loss of crews or something like that? I'm confused.
Oh no, we're on track to completing our work prior to year's end. We did bring on a few more service crews recently from out of state to help assist us. We might see a little tick in increased cost as a result, but we're still on target for completing our goal.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add to that, thank you, Ken and Commissioner Herman. I will say that our busiest months in the STRIDE program and the time in which we have historically done the most happen, in the summer and the fall. So luckily, even though we missed out on a few weeks where we had to halt projects in the beginning stages of the COVID pandemic, luckily we've been working hard and are on track now. So I hope that we answered your question there.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to note that the 9 projects all include replacement of low pressure bare steel and or cast iron pipe. I think that's significant, and I just wanted to call that out. It's an important point, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this point, I will move that we note the filing. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Before we conclude today's meeting, just on a related note, because it involves the same utility, Columbia Gas of Maryland, we do have a public comment hearing later on tonight at 7 p.m. This is with regard to Columbia Gas rate increase proposal in case number 9644. For members of the public who are interested, that will be live streaming on our Public Utility Law Judges independent YouTube channel tonight at 7 p.m. With nothing else on today's agenda, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.